You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.
I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop. Could I homeschool?
I don't know. Could you?
I don't know. Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. So there comes a time in every parent's life that they have to decide the educational trajectory, if I can say it, of their child.
Yes.
And people start talking about that when before kids, when their baby's cooking in the womb, they're talking about it all the way until they actually make the decision.
Totally.
And it's such a huge decision for parents. And so the question comes up, could I homeschool? And we're also going to talk about next week, should I homeschool?
Yeah.
So we're separating those two things out. So we're going to give you some simple ways that you can decide, could I homeschool?
Right.
And so, but first, let's do our scoop on the coop.
Yeah. So I've been a mad woman planning a bunch of field trips lately.
Oh yeah, you have been.
So I've shared before that I got so excited about my California history curriculum.
It's awesome.
And then came the time to actually plan them. And a lot of thought has gone into it, a lot of scheduling, a lot of communicating with these places, and that's really awesome. But in addition to the ones that I'm planning that I'm including our Coop group in and some other homeschool friends, I planned one for my own family.
Oh.
So we haven't gone on it at this point in the filming, but by the time this is live, it will have happened. So if you've already seen it on Instagram or wherever, then, just know that we pre-record these episodes. But my family is taking a trip to Mission Santa Barbara to see the grave of the lone woman, which inspired the book Island of the Blue Dolphins, which we've already read. And
but you read as part of this study.
As part of our California history study. And then we are going to camp down in Ventura and take a boat for a day trip to Santa Cruz Island within the Channel Islands.
That's so
So
cool.
I'm super excited. That's not the island that Karana from Island of the Blue Dolphins or the lone woman was stranded on. She actually lived on San Nicolas with the Nicoleño Indians. But it's not
close
accessible.
enough. Yeah.
It's not accessible. You can't even get there. So
You can probably see it.
right, Santa Cruz had the most affordable rates.
Santa
I've seen
Cruz.
Santa Cruz
the
Island.
Yeah.
And shortest boat ride because my daughter was getting a little nervous about riding on a boat.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
That's good
for
that she's doing it. She's
Yeah.
getting exposed to that.
So it's just about an hour's boat ride, and of course you can see it. Hopefully the day is clear for her.
Hopefully it's a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
I'm so excited. Our San Diego or Southern California winters are pretty magnificent.
They are,
so
yeah.
if it's anything like the last few weekends, it's going to be gorgeous. Chilly, but gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then it drops us off on the island for about a total of 5 hours. And then we get back on the boat to go back
And
to
there's
our
no
campground.
services, right?
There's no services. The boat sells food, so you can buy prepackaged food on the boat to take with you. But we'll just pack our backpacks. Each August is 4. And
He's
he
going to
can
have a little backpack. It'd be so cute.
Yeah, we can all have our own waters and snacks, and we'll just eat a good something before we get on the boat.
If you have to poop, where are you going to go?
Oh, they do have toilets.
Oh, okay.
So they just don't have any people staffed. So
Oh,
services
okay.
as
So
in
it's
they
like
can't sell
outhouses.
anything.
Or it's like
because they have campsites.
the arches would have bathrooms.
Right. So
And then
there's
a drinking
bathrooms.
fountain or
Yeah.
something. Okay.
And then one side of the island has potable water and the other side doesn't. So there's no water on the other side. You have to pack in all the water that you need. So it just depends on which side of the island you are going to. There's hiking that's really easy, and I'm just so excited.
I love anytime that you compare a trip with a book that you read, it just comes alive, right? And that's hands-on history.
Right.
And literature learning.
Right. And that's what I love about the curriculum that I picked is that not only does it include those as a literature-based curriculum, but it also is including a ton of work on California geography and California habitats and ecosystems. And so that's a huge part of our learning, which makes it even more valuable to go because it's all connected.
Yeah.
So everything is relevant. So literally we can go outside and everything is relevant to our curriculum. And I love it.
And that's California out of the box, right?
California out of the box is the main framework that I used. And then I have several others that I don't know if we've already linked, but I have all the links for you. So if we haven't linked it before, we'll find a way to link it. or maybe it's time that just becomes a blog post.
Yeah,
it's ready
blog
to
post
go.
would be great.
So
yeah.
I will get that out there for you because I'm loving what I'm doing so far.
Cool.
And I'll give a final review when we're done with it and see how it ends.
Yeah,
but,
maybe do the blog post then.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Yeah, after you're done.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and then you could do a score for each.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Oh yeah, I do too. That's why I suggested it.
Okay, that's your scoop, Mandy.
Okay, so we are doing this curriculum called Writing and Rhetoric, and my daughter especially loves it because it's fables and it's working on your writing. So the most recent lesson is Anthropomorphism, where animals take on human characteristics. Yes. So there was some things fables they read for that, and then they had to summarize them, they had to amplify it. But it was just so fun because when they each did their own amplification, meaning like breathed more details and brought it more to life. Their two stories, even though it said the same moral, came out completely different.
That's crazy.
And it was really fun to see how they started with exactly the same sentences and then added to it the dialogue. But what was super funny is my son, since we love Mr. DeMeo so much, he added in one of Mr. DeMeo's characters who always says, "What's his pants?"
What is pants?
Yeah, so he made sure there were pants there. And then, and what's so funny is he had the crow tell him what pants were. They're just long shorts.
Oh, yeah.
And then the same character always says, "What's his pants?" So when he said it again, my son says the crow thought he was being so rude. He just answered the question. Yeah. And so he's doing anthropomorphism so naturally and easily, not even realize that's what he just did.
Right. And
that's what makes it funny. Yeah. So he's like combining different.
It's so fun.
Yeah. So that was just really fun for us. And then they read it to their dad, and he thought it was hilarious. And
Perfect.
Yeah, it's fun.
Love it.
All right. So let's go to deciding to homeschool. You asked the question, could I homeschool?
Yeah.
So deciding whether or not to homeschool can be daunting, obviously. Like, especially if you don't know a lot of people who homeschool, and if you weren't homeschool, it can be a really scary decision to make. And so we're just offering some simple questions for you to ask yourself to help you through this process. Right. The number one main question to ask that really is basically the only one really needed to answer this question is, do you want to homeschool?
Yes.
Yes, I do too. Wait, you weren't answering. Okay. So
no, yes, I want to homeschool.
Yeah. So do you want to homeschool? So if you say, yes, I want to homeschool, then you should homeschool.
Yeah.
Like that, you can homeschool.
The rest will happen.
Yeah, the rest will happen. You can figure it out. Anything you really want to do, you make yourself capable. You take your classes, or you read your books, or you find friends to talk to, and you make it happen. But if you're kind of mixed feelings about it, then here's some things that can help you go a little bit deeper into the question to help you. You may also want to tune in as a side note to our Hesitant Homeschooler podcast episodes, 28, 32, 36, and 37. And that might help you with some of your concerns or things that make you hesitant.
Yeah.
But okay, so you're mixed. You don't know if you want to or not, because you do, but you don't. And that's where we see a lot of people struggling. Like, I do, but blah, blah. Right. Or I would, but da, 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 da. So it's like, okay, you sound like you want to, but you're letting things kind of cloud that decision.
Yeah.
So first, ask yourself, what's your ideal normal day? Right. Is it being with your kids? Is it learning things together with your kids? Is it going on adventures with them? Is it playing games? Is it having a leisure morning once they're a little older? Is it picking your own schedule? Or is it going to the office and seeing friends at 8 a.m. and having a life outside of your home?
Right.
Because I think one will tell you, then you do want to homeschool. And one will probably tell you, maybe homeschool is not something I want to do. When you think of homeschooling, what's the feeling or picture that pops in your head? Yeah. So is it cuddling your children and being like reading aloud to them and just being with them? Or is it like, oh my gosh, it would just be chaos and messes would be everywhere?
Right.
Do you already
fighting and
do you already feel like disgust? And so what pops into your head? And would you be excited? Are you a nervous excited? Because that's fine too. So make sure that your expectations and your emotions regarding like your anxiety also do not cloud your judgment.
Yeah.
Because if you're anxious, the picture that pops in your head might cloud whether or not you want to. Okay, what are the reasons you're considering homeschooling? Is it to get more time with your child? Is it to have freedom? Is it to problem solve a problem that they're having, which will probably come up more in the should I homeschool?
Yes.
Is it because of recent current events with like mask mandates or vaccine mandates
or imposed curriculum that you don't agree with?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it might help you if you list out the reasons that you do want to homeschool. And then when you look at that, can you say, yes, I do want to homeschool? So just listing them out on a piece of paper will make it a little more clear for you.
Yeah.
Do I want to take more ownership over my child's education? If that is something that you're like, ew, I don't really care how they're educated, I just want somebody else to do it.
Right.
Then you probably don't want to homeschool. But if you're like, oh, I mean, that sounds hard, but that would be kind of an interesting thing to tackle. I see that as a nice challenge.
Right.
Then maybe you want to homeschool.
Right.
And then do you have any reasons like you feel like you can't homeschool? And this goes back to the Hesitant Homeschooler series. We have a whole thing. What do we talk about? Like I don't have the patience. And
what are your roadblocks?
Yeah.
Like what's causing you to think you can't do it?
Yeah. And listen to our Homeschooling in a Single Child podcast episode too, if you have a single child and if that's making you hesitant. But you might not have hesitancy once you hear how we homeschoolers deal with all those roadblocks. And then you'll be able to say, okay, I do want to.
Right. I could do this.
Yeah. And then if you're still confused if you want to homeschool or not, make a T-chart with pros and cons. So you can actually look at, and when you look at the pros and you say, I do want to homeschool. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of all this, if you say, yes, I want to homeschool, then you could homeschool.
Yes.
You can become capable. You can do what needs to be done to do it. You don't need college. We've talked about this. You don't need the college degree. You don't need the teacher training. You don't need any of that. You're already teaching them the things that they need to know for life.
Right.
And
there's a huge availability of support and resources out there that you don't know about until you start looking for them. And so that's the thing too. All of these roadblocks have answers.
Yeah.
All of these roadblocks have support and help to get you past them if you look. But usually people who are questioning things aren't quite at the point where they're ready to look yet. They just need someone to say, yeah, you could do it.
Yeah.
We know you can do it. You've got this. Don't worry about that thing. You can find an answer, and so the biggest thing is to get out of your own head and say, I want it. I think I could do it.
Totally. I mean, think about like becoming a parent and when it's a planned pregnancy, right? You
terrifying.
Think of like, you don't feel ready.
No.
But what did you do to get pregnant? You're looking at your...
I know what I did. Just kidding.
But, like besides that, like the app you followed for your fertility, and then what you did while you were pregnant and how hard that was. And that's, we have this like alien creature growing inside of us.
Taking your classes. Like how many people sign up for birthing classes and newborn care classes?
CPR and so you made yourself capable to be able to have a baby and then raise them to the age, whatever age they are now.
Don't question education. It's the same thing. It's the same idea. There's support for you.
Yeah. So, okay. So now let's say you do want to homeschool and you're like, yes, there's just two other small details that you need to make sure can happen to be able to say, yes, I can homeschool. Am I available to homeschool my child? I want to, but am I available? Or is someone available? Maybe you have a grandparent or an aunt or
maybe you work part-time, full-time. You have an interesting schedule for other reasons. Yeah, your availability is not going to be cookie cutter with the person next to you.
Yeah, and we have friends who are like a full-time lawyer. You work 20 hours a week. So it's totally possible, but I mean, you probably have to at least take some ownership over it. So if you're a single parent, you have other support. And Do you have availability to pursue friendships for your children? Like if your kids are going to have to be home all the time because you're working and they never can go out and meet other people, then you might not want to homeschool at that point. Like you're going to want your kids to have interactions with friends, and you're going to want that too. So, so that's part of being available to a community, and an availability to, are you okay about grading work and learning concepts along with your child? You know, so, that's availability. And then number 3, do you have some resources to be successful at homeschooling, even if you just try it for one semester? Like you're not committing to the rest of their life. Just think of it like, I would try it for one semester, and it's just minimal resources you need for that, right? A small budget for school supplies, some art supplies, some content, but the content can be all sorts of things. And do you have a library accessible to you? Right. Or a local bookstore you can go hang out in? Do you have games at home? Very simple things. Right. Do you have paper? You know, I mean, it's just, it's as simple as that. Places you can, do you have a place to be outside safely with your children? Or a place that you can go to be outside? Do you have one computer in the home and internet where you can look things up?
Right. Or access to it at your library.
Yeah. Good point. And then, do you know how to have access to like people and podcasts and helpful tools that can support the choices that you're making? And most people do.
I think so.
Yeah. So it's, do I want to homeschool? Right. And if yes, am I available? And do I have some resources? And that really will answer your question for you of, could I homeschool?
Yeah. And I really loved it's not forever.
Yeah.
Especially if your child has not yet started public school. That was kind of how I approached it. Even though I was already pretty confident I wanted to homeschool.
Totally. Yeah.
I 100% knew I wanted to homeschool. I just wasn't sure how much support I needed or wanted, or if I was going to end up finding my own groove and not wanting any support.
Right.
So for me, it was just start somewhere. And so I'm still basically homeschooling the same way that I started, because I ended up feeling really confident in it, you know, and so if it's not working, you can change it. I could have changed it if I needed more support rather than less, and that would have been fine. Yeah. But I ended up loving it, and I grew in confidence. And I think that's the thing too, with the right support system and with the right resources available, and having the desire to do it and to do it successfully, regardless of, you know, what you think it's supposed to look like. Right. I think that you could. You know, I absolutely have the confidence that you could homeschool. Yeah. And you have this huge community of people like Mandy and I who are passionate. I will tell you, I'm not sure there's a more passionate community than homeschool moms.
Oh, I know.
For real.
And who are really into uplifting each other and helping each other and offering tools and help. And, oh, here, you should borrow this book, or you should come look at my curriculum. Or
I very rarely see the drama that typically, passionate people tend to have, because you feel very offended by things when you feel so deeply and strongly about them. Yeah. But it's not the same on some of the other Facebook boards that I follow. But the homeschool ones, people are always out there, and they may not always agree or disagree with you or whatever. Yeah. But they have so much to share and to offer, and these people are so supportive. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that somebody says, like, this curriculum isn't working, I don't know what to do. And somebody else says, well, where do you live? Let me bring this over to you. I mean, this is a nationwide Facebook group, and yet they're still finding literal people in their community.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Yeah, and I remember when I went to start homeschooling, I was super nervous about it, but I basically started as a parent. Right. And so when my son was in speech therapy until he was 3, from age 2 to 3, I was like, oh, okay, this is what she does. And so then I started doing that. And that's what kind of helped me gain some confidence. So now we have, not that we didn't have YouTube back then, but that was, it was
still different
9 or 10 years ago. Now there's YouTubes, now there's homeschooling podcasts. Now there's so many things that can say, okay, this is how you could do your first day of school. This is how you can do preschool. This is how you can do kindergarten. Yeah. And it's out there for you. And just looking at some of those things, you now feel equipped. And then you listen to that inner voice of, what do I want to do? What excites me about homeschooling? Right. And that shows me I can do it.
Right. Well, you touched on something that I want to emphasize, which was that there doesn't need to be a big switch into homeschooling, especially if you're talking about a preschool aged child, because that was kind of what I was thinking. And then all of a sudden I found, oh, I don't need to open this book or this thing. My kid is learning still. Like, I actually am not doing anything different now that she's officially homeschooling. Right. But I can keep going. It has evolved.
Yeah, you
into
progress.
More.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that all of a sudden she's in TK or kindergarten and now I have to like sit down for an hour a day.
Right.
I actually didn't change anything. We still read books together. We still did these things. I just maybe was more intentional about numbers, for instance, which were never her favorite way of play.
Yeah.
So we incorporated more numbers games and stuff like that. But I didn't force anything.
Yeah.
I mean, change
I
my
had
life.
that squishy human body thing, and Ruby was literally like 2 and fascinated by it. So every day she would ask to play with it, and then I would just name the main organs. Yep. And she would play with it for 30 to 45 minutes. It was so funny. It's so funny. And now I have it. No one cares to really touch it.
Of course,
but it's just, I was educating my children.
You were.
And
you were the whole time.
Yeah. And so it's just like you said, a natural progression. And then if you feel like, could I homeschool and your child's in 5th grade? Then that's a different scenario than what we're talking about, but you can still do it. You've been seeing what they've been doing all these years.
Right.
And now you can take a break from it. You can listen to our deschooling podcast episode and you can just say, what do I want to do to enjoy my child and learn along with them?
Right.
And just use your own curiosity to bring excitement to the room.
Yeah, I agree.
So you can do it.
You can do it.
We wouldn't say you could do it if we didn't believe it. And that's what we're here for.
Yes.
Okay, so C.S. Lewis, it's not C.S. Lewis, although he has some great quotes too. Dr. Seuss.
Oh, yes.
I always flip their names around. Dr. Seuss said, children want the same things we want: to laugh, to be challenged, to be entertained, and delighted.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think like if you can do that with your children, to challenge them, laugh with them, enjoy things with them, and delight them with like awesome things about the world and adventures, you're good.
You're good.
You can do it.
Love it.
Okay, so now it's time for our Coop Q A,
where we answer your questions. If you have a question, email us, mamahens@thecoophomeschool.com. Mandy, what's our question?
The question is, next Monday, I'm going to start homeschooling my newly 3-year-old.
Oh.
Are there any resources you can give me to find free printouts? I appreciate all your help and thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like we just touched on that in the sense that we said nothing needs to change. You just keep doing what you've been doing, all of your natural learning. But what else did you think of?
So, well, what I noticed was she was asking for printout worksheets, which is great if they're like coloring and whatever. And she's trying to stay good on her budget with having a free place to go. Yeah. But I want to rephrase this question.
Okay.
Of what I think would be better for her to ask. I'm a parent of a newly 3-year-old. Are there any resources you can give me to find free, wonderful experiences with my little one? Mm-hmm. And to see it as like, okay, a printout is one thing, but a 3-year-old doesn't really need printouts unless they're dying to write things down. I even saw someone asking about, I need a tutor for my 4-year-old. And I'm just like, I mean, unless they have special needs and they need that additional support, but I'm just like, you just play some games with them and they're good. A 3-year-old does not need a bunch of printouts. They don't need to do a bunch of worksheets. And so use sensory bins. And if you want them to write, get some Ziplocs, put some glue in it, even colored glue or glitter glue. Right. Close it up, tape it to the table, all 4 sides, and then they can move it around with their fingers. Right. And then if you want them to make letters, which I think 3-year-old is pretty early to do letters, but if they're interested in it, why not? Then they can start making letters on it. They just push down and then they're getting the sensory experience. Yeah. You don't need them to have to hold a pencil at 3 years old.
No.
So I remember when Augie was about that age, or even a little younger, he was really into drawing.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah, I think that was when he was 2.5, when we filmed the preschool episode on our podcast. And he was on the whiteboard a whole bunch. And he was holding things like with this amazing grip. But let me tell you what happened since then. He has not wanted to even color or hold pencils.
He got it out of
very
his system.
often. Yeah, so here I was thinking I was going to have this kid who was going to write early and read early. And he knows his letters, which I covered in another scoop on the Coop previously. But he had this desire to do it this way, and then it left him. It was just a little
passing moment.
And that's fine because I didn't want to force it. I want him to love it. I want him to like it. So I'm not going to force it. So now he's 4, doesn't know how to hold a pencil, and I'm not concerned about it in the least.
At all. Just like some people are potty trained when they're 4 or even 5, and some people are potty trained when they're 2.
Right.
But by the time they're 18, it didn't matter when they potty trained.
No.
And so to just keep that in mind, those with 3-year-olds, that unless they're dying to use printouts,
right,
don't worry about it.
And you know what I love that's free is the library.
Yeah.
There's a ton of Lift the Flap books. Mm-hmm. So then they are interactive. Are you looking for something that's like interactive? Mm-hmm. You know,
well, Cheerios. I mean, I kept my babies always occupied in their little high chair, and they would pick one Cheerio up at a time. To do that takes
dexterity.
So much.
Right. So then that was going to be my next point. Are you looking for dexterity practice and developmental coordination? Because there's a lot more things you can do than print a worksheet, you know, not to, you know, be insulting in that way, but if that's your intent, yes, there's even books that are for Cheerios and they have little spots on them where you put the Cheerios. And so cute. Are you looking for that? The library might have them. There's Buy Nothing groups on Facebook, and people, I just saw somebody giving away a collection of Usborne books. Oh, wow. So while we would recommend those as something that you can purchase, maybe you can get them for free. You know, ask your neighbors, what do you have? People only have small preschool age kids for a short amount of time. Yeah. They're getting rid of things all the time. Yeah. Ask around. There are amazing resources out there that don't require forcing your kid to hold a pencil or crayons. Like, neither of my kids were coloring. Or like, they didn't like to color as toddlers.
And here's the thing. Just live life with your 3-year-old. Right. Like, if you're into gardening, invite them to garden with you. Right. Get their hands dirty in the dirt. Right. If you're going to the beach, invite them to play in the sand.
The first letter of their name. Totally. You know, if they're Sophia, you practice that S in the sand. Yeah. Write their whole name. Name recognition is a huge thing. August has been able to know when it's his name for a long time.
That's so cool.
But he doesn't know how to spell it to me, which is fine. He doesn't need to yet. Yeah. But that name recognition, so if that's the skill you're going for, write it in the sand, write it in the soil when you're gardening. Do that everywhere, you know. They don't need to do it. You do it and talk to them about it. Yeah. If they want to trace it, awesome. Yeah. Make an art project out of it. You know?
They don't need a worksheet to do math. No. Like, you're playing with sticks and rocks, whatever they're interested in playing with, then you can count them with them. He doesn't need to see a worksheet with it on there.
You know what we really liked? Not quite worksheety, but we called them sticker pictures.
Oh yeah.
So we would get those like 99-cent sticker books from Michael's or something like that.
Or the 99-cent store.
Right. Yeah. So then they'd be of one theme, like a garden theme, and there'd be butterflies. So Sophia would just get a blank piece of printer paper, and we actually had a flip book, and she would just put them in there, and then she would tell me a story based on the things that she put in there. August doesn't do it the same way. He likes to put all of his stickers on top of each other, but he's using the practice, the dexterity to pick up a sticker and to get it off of his fingers, which is hard. And, you know, so there's a ton of skill development to be had without ever having to print a single worksheet.
Yeah. So, you know, no judgment for someone who wants printouts, but I think my overall cringe, I would say, is she's going to make it harder for herself. Like, homeschooling does not need to be hard. Right. It can just be enjoying your child, and they're going to learn from you naturally by you just talking with them, narrating what you're doing when you're around them, you know, and asking them what they think about things. Right. You know, it's just, so listen to our preschool episode. Yes. That's episode 4. And then you can also listen to the kindergarten episode depending on how your child is developing, and if they're ahead of the game, then go to the kindergarten episode, which is episode number 72.
Yeah.
And but just enjoy it.
Right. And just because you started deciding to homeschool doesn't mean you have to change anything that you're currently doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It just means that you're not going to be locked into certain schedules of dropping them off somewhere. You don't have to worry about teaching them to be away from you.
Yeah. You just go with the flow with what they're doing, but you don't have to do anything differently.
Yeah.
Just be with your kid.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks for listening. We love your support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review to let us know how we're doing, and share our podcast with your friends who need a little community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.